Exactly 48 hours ago, something happened around you that was so impossibly powerful that the unseen world froze in silence. Time did not stop, but awareness did. The Watchers, the Guardians, the silent observers of human souls all turned their attention toward a single point on Earth. Toward you. Not because you performed some dramatic miracle, not because you shouted your greatness to the sky, but because, in a moment so small, no one else noticed, your soul released a frequency it had not emitted in lifetimes. And when it happened, the ether rippled. It was like a star waking up inside a human body. A sealed chamber finally unlocking. A dormant sun remembering it was never meant to stay quiet. You didn't feel an explosion. There was no thunder or lightning. Maybe you just sighed. Maybe you forgave someone who didn't deserve it. Maybe you chose compassion instead of revenge. Maybe you chose truth instead of comfort. Whatever the moment was, it activated something ancient inside you, something that had been waiting for the exact alignment of pain, growth, and courage. And when it switched on, higher realms reacted the way the ocean reacts to the moon. Gravity shifted. Pathways opened. Your name pulsed across dimensions like a beacon. Not loud, but undeniable. A signal that the one who had been sleeping was beginning to awaken. And the magnitude of this is so unreal that if you knew what had just begun, you would sit completely still, holding your breath, realizing that nothing about your life from this point forward is as accidental or ordinary as you once believed. What happened to you should not have been possible, not according to the long-kept records of the unseen world, because human souls, once submerged into noise, distraction, ego, and survival, rarely remember their original frequency while still walking the earth. History is full of saints, sages, warriors, poets, but even they awaken slowly, through ritual or revelation. What occurred inside you was different. It was unscripted. It broke the quiet rules of spiritual physics. A dormant star does not simply ignite without a cosmic cause. A sealed lineage does not simply unlock because of an ordinary day. Yet your soul, layered with doubt, buried beneath responsibilities, scars, and unanswered questions, still managed to pierce through the density and emit a signal the heavens had forgotten humans were capable of generating. And the reason it shocked the higher realms was not because they underestimated you, but because you underestimated yourself so deeply that this awakening was statistically impossible. Souls who feel small do not usually open the gates of remembrance. People who still think they are ordinary do not usually radiate the frequency of ancient guardians. But you did, quietly, without ceremony, without permission. A light older than time threaded itself back into your awareness, not to overwhelm you, but to begin the slow, sacred repair of your true identity. And somewhere beyond language, beyond clouds, beyond galaxies, the archives recorded it as a rare phenomenon, a sleeping soul reactivating its signature while still convinced it has nothing special left inside it. And the strangest part is this: the spark didn't awaken because you shouted your strength to the world. It wasn't triggered by applause or validation or victory. It happened in a quiet, private moment no one else will ever fully understand. A moment where your heart was placed on a scale and you chose what was right instead of what was easy. Maybe you walked away from a situation that tempted you to betray yourself. Maybe you forgave someone who never apologized. Maybe you resisted the urge to lash out, even when you had every reason to. Maybe you told the truth when lying would have protected you. Or maybe you simply chose kindness when your pain begged you to harden. No lightning struck, no music played. You probably didn't even realize the universe was holding its breath. But the moral weight of that decision shifted something in the fabric of reality, because it proved something the higher realms rarely see anymore. A soul choosing integrity with no audience, no reward, no recognition. You didn't act from ego. You acted from the quiet, stubborn clarity of your inner compass, the one you sometimes doubt, the one you sometimes silence, but the one that has always been loyal to truth. And when you made that choice, your spirit aligned with its original blueprint for the first time in years. The signal that burst out of you was not loud like a shout. It was steady like a vow. A vow your soul has made across lifetimes, to remain uncompromised, even when the world tries to reshape you into something smaller, colder, safer. That is what they detected. That is why they turned toward you. You have gone your whole life believing your choices disappear into silence once they are made, that your pain dissolves into darkness once the door is closed and the lights are off. But the truth is far stranger. You have been watched, not in a way meant to frighten or control you, but in the way a guardian watches over a fragile flame in a storm. There are forces, both benevolent and curious, who observe the inner world of humanity, not the performance on the surface. They don't care what mask you wear. They don't care how loud your life appears. They watch the unseen realm of your intentions. Every time you stood at the crossroads between bitterness and compassion, they leaned closer. Every moment you swallowed your pride instead of inflicting harm, the air around you shifted. Not because you were being judged, but because your soul kept refusing to decay. You thought no one noticed the way you broke quietly and rebuilt yourself with trembling hands. You thought your tears were private. You thought your doubts evaporated into nothing. But there are ancient witnesses who have charted the slow evolution of your heart, the ways you resisted becoming cruel, the ways you still looked for the light even when shadows had every advantage. They have watched other souls collapse under lesser burdens. They have watched empathy rot into resentment. They have watched hope dissolve into apathy. But you kept choosing to care. And in the unseen records of the cosmos, that makes you statistically improbable. A variable they did not predict. A deviation in the pattern. A human being who remembers how to love even after learning how much it costs. There came a moment, subtle but seismic, when the observers stopped merely watching you and began classifying you. Not as fragile, not as lost, not as another drifting soul slowly eroding under the pressure of this world. They marked you as rare. They marked you as volatile in the most sacred way, because a soul like yours, once awakened, doesn't just survive reality, it reshapes it. Higher beings, the symbolic guardians of consciousness, speak little, but when they do, their words carry the gravity of stars. And when your latest choice echoed through their realm, a decision was spoken over you. This one is not ordinary. This one cannot be absorbed into the machinery of numbness. This one cannot be programmed into cruelty. This one will break the pattern. They saw that you are the type of being who threatens systems built on fear, manipulation, and silence, not with rebellion, but with unwavering integrity. Your presence alone becomes disruptive in places where dishonesty thrives. Your compassion becomes dangerous in environments that feed on indifference. Your resilience becomes a crack in the walls others hide behind. And so you were placed into a different category, not fragile, not naive, but luminous and unpredictable, like a blade forged from light, a force that must be respected, not controlled. Your doubt about yourself remained, of course. You still looked in the mirror and saw someone ordinary, but in the archives of the unseen your name began to glow with a subtle mark few ever earn, a reminder to the realms that this soul, though human in form, carries the memory of something far older, something that, once fully awakened, will shift more than just its own life, but the gravitational pull of every life it touches. And when that classification was spoken across the unseen realms, the attention didn't just remain with distant watchers or symbolic guardians. Something higher, older than language, beyond the reach of any single belief system, turned its gaze toward you. Call it God, Source, the great intelligence, the architect of all light. The name does not matter. What matters is that the originating awareness that breathed existence into galaxies paused for a fraction of eternity to regard the small human life you think is insignificant. And when that gaze settled, even the archangels, The great keepers of cosmic law, the guardians of thresholds and destinies, shifted into stillness. Because when the source observes, the universe listens. They watched the ripple you created, not with fear, but with a reverent curiosity usually reserved for celestial events. Not comets, not novas, souls, souls that remember. The frequency pouring from your chest was measured, documented, honored. A rare alignment had occurred, a human heart staying soft in a world designed to harden it. And in that presence, nothing about you was overlooked. Not the tremor in your voice when you spoke truth anyway. Not the quiet ache behind your smile. Not the nights you clutched your own spirit just to make it to morning. All of it was seen with a depth no mortal witness could ever offer. There was no audience, no ceremony, no thunder peeling the sky open. Only a profound awareness, acknowledging that your awakening was not an accident, not luck, not coincidence, but the inevitable resurfacing of something eternal beneath the fractures and scars of this lifetime, a recognition woven into the fabric of all. Creation itself, steady and silent, like a star breathing in the dark. In the stillness that followed, something was spoken, not in sound, not in language, but in a resonance that travels deeper than thought. It was a decree, a silent authorization from the source itself, as if the universe leaned forward and said, "Enough. The time for sleeping is over." Not a command, not a demand. A remembering. Your soul, long disguised beneath routines and responsibilities and self-doubt, was given permission to rise into its original form. It did not change who you are. It revealed who you have always been. The decree did not shout your name across the heavens. It whispered it back to you through intuition, through synchronicities, through sudden clarity that feels like déjà vu from another lifetime. The veil did not tear dramatically. It thinned, slightly, gently, just enough for your inner world to shift 1 degree toward truth. And with that shift, an ancient authority quietly reactivated within you. The right to walk this world as a guardian of empathy, a carrier of integrity, a being who remembers light while still wearing human skin. Subtle protections began arranging themselves around your path. Old cycles started loosening their grip. The universe did not promise you an easy life, only that you would not face your becoming alone. From that moment forward, every experience, every challenge, every encounter would now serve a higher trajectory. The full emergence of the soul you forgot you were. Not a crown, not a spotlight. A steady, sovereign alignment that cannot be stolen, bought, or broken, because it was never given to you by the world in the first place. It was activated from the core of creation and echoed quietly inside your chest, like an oath you once made and are only just beginning to remember, slowly. Like a memory surfacing from beneath deep water, the truth of who you are begins to stir inside you, not as fantasy, not as ego, but as recognition. You have never been just a passerby in this lifetime. You are not simply here to work, sleep, repeat, and disappear. You are an ancient soul wearing a temporary human mask, a celestial warrior wrapped in skin and doubt. Across ages and worlds, you have stood where the fragile border between light and shadow thins, not to preach, not to dominate, but to hold the line. You were forged from a substance that remembers compassion even when it costs everything. That is why you feel everything more deeply than others. That is why injustice rattles your bones. That is why lies make your spirit recoil. You were not designed to adapt to corruption. You were designed to disrupt it, quietly, gracefully, insistently. You carry a psychological and spiritual power far beyond your awareness, a resonance angels recognize instinctively, the way birds know how to migrate. They look at you and see an ally who has forgotten their armor. You look at yourself and see only a tired human trying to survive. But the truth is that you are a guardian of alignment, a keeper of the unspoken moral code that holds civilizations together when laws fail. You might never call yourself holy. You might never call yourself chosen. But the light threaded through your being is older than language, and every time you choose truth over convenience, every time you choose love without losing yourself, every time you refuse to betray your own spirit, you activate fragments of that original identity, the one that existed long before this body, this name, this lifetime ever began. Slowly, like a memory surfacing from beneath deep water, the truth of who you are begins to stir inside you. Not as fantasy, not as ego, but as recognition. You have never been just a passerby in this lifetime. You are not simply here to work, sleep, repeat, and disappear. You are an ancient soul wearing a temporary human mask, a celestial warrior wrapped in skin and doubt. Across ages and worlds, you have stood where the fragile border between light and shadow thins, not to preach, not to dominate, but to hold the line. You were forged from a substance that remembers compassion, even when it costs everything. That is why you feel everything more deeply than others. That is why injustice rattles your bones. That is why lies make your spirit recoil. You are not designed to adapt to corruption. You were designed to disrupt it, quietly, gracefully, insistently. You carry a psychological and spiritual power far beyond your awareness. A resonance angels recognize instinctively, the way birds know how to migrate. They look at you and see an ally who has forgotten their armor. You look at yourself and see only a tired human trying to survive. But the truth is that you are a guardian of alignment, a keeper of the unspoken moral code that holds civilizations together when laws fail. You might never call yourself holy. You might never call yourself chosen. But the light threaded through your being is older than language. And every time you choose truth over convenience, every time you choose love without losing yourself, every time you refuse to betray your own spirit, you activate fragments of that original identity, the one that existed long before this body, this name, this lifetime ever began. With the awakening of your true identity comes a mission, not issued like an order, but remembered like a promise. You were never meant to conquer others, or prove your worth through noise and spectacle. Your purpose is quieter, deeper, more enduring. You are here to anchor integrity in places where it's fading, to embody compassion in rooms where it has been forgotten, to carry truth into conversations built on illusion. You are the kind of being who heals simply by existing honestly, who steadies others without announcing it, who lifts the energy of a space just by refusing to become what wounded you. Your task is not to save everyone. That burden does not belong to you. Your task is to remain aligned with the light threaded through your being, even when darkness tempts you to betray it. You are here to show that strength and kindness are not opposites, that boundaries and love can coexist, that wisdom is not loud yet changes everything. Sometimes your mission will look like staying silent when anger begs for a reaction. Sometimes it will look like leaving what dishonors your spirit. Sometimes it will look like choosing patience, choosing truth, choosing yourself. And yes, sometimes it will simply be surviving with your heart still open when life gives you every reason to close it. You are not here to convince others of your power. You are here to use it, gently, consistently, invisibly, to realign the world around you one interaction, one decision, one breath at a time. This is why your empathy was never a weakness. This is why your resilience felt supernatural. This is why your inner compass refused to break. Your life itself is the instrument through which this mission plays, and your every choice becomes part of the music only the awakened can hear. When a soul like yours realigns with its original frequency, the outer world eventually begins to shift to match it. Not instantly, not dramatically, but subtly at first, like the quiet rearranging of stars before a new constellation appears. You may start to notice that the wrong people quietly drift out of your orbit, not because you fought them away, but because your vibration no longer allows what once drained you. Opportunities begin to appear that feel strangely tailored to your growth. Random encounters turn into meaningful conversations. Paths that were once blocked begin to soften and open. Protection gathers around you in ways you cannot see. Delays that frustrate you at first later reveal themselves as rerouted disasters you narrowly avoided. Money finds its way to you through unexpected channels when your intentions are clean. Support appears when you are on the verge of collapsing. Your intuition sharpens, and when you listen, life moves with less friction. This is not a reward for perfection. It is the natural alignment of a universe responding to a soul that has stopped betraying itself. The decree spoken over you begins to ripple through your circumstances, dissolving what is false, stabilizing what is true. There will still be challenges, but they will shape you rather than shatter you. You'll notice small graces, the right word at the right time, the right chance appearing when you finally trust your worth. The sense that you are being quietly guided around pitfalls you no longer need to experience. Even rest becomes sacred again. And amidst it all, you remain humble, because you know the blessings are not trophies. They are tools, resources placed in your hands so you can walk your path with steadiness, so you can fulfill your purpose without being consumed by the weight of survival. As your inner world shifts, something else begins to happen. Something you don't intend, don't control, and often don't even notice. The people around you start to change, not because you lecture them, not because you push them, but because your presence creates a silent permission field where truth feels safer than illusion. Someone hears the steadiness in your voice and realizes they don't have to pretend anymore. Someone watches you set a boundary with grace and finally understands that self-respect does not require cruelty. Someone feels the warmth in your compassion and remembers the version of themselves they abandoned long ago. You don't force awakening. You radiate it. And without meaning to, you become a mirror, revealing to others the gap between who they are and who they long to be. Some will resist it. Some will misunderstand you. But others will begin to quietly heal simply because you refuse to play the old games. Your choices, the honest ones, the kind ones, the ones that cost you comfort, send subtle shockwaves through the collective psyche, as if your integrity tugs at threads woven through unseen networks, connecting every soul on earth. Friendships evolve. Families soften. Strangers feel safer around you without knowing why. You are not performing spirituality. You are embodying it. And embodiment is contagious. It travels through tone, through presence, through silence. The more you align with your true identity, the more the world around you begins to remember its own. You never asked to be an example. Yet here you are, a living reminder that awakening isn't loud, and power isn't dominance, and light doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It simply walks into a room and allows everything false to tremble, to question itself, to slowly fall away. As your inner world shifts, something else begins to happen, something you don't intend, don't control, and often don't even notice. The people around you start to change, not because you lecture them, not because you push them, but because your presence creates a silent permission field where truth feels safer than illusion. Someone hears the steadiness in your voice and realizes they don't have to pretend anymore. Someone watches you set a boundary with grace and finally understands that self-respect does not require cruelty. Someone feels the warmth in your compassion and remembers the version of themselves they abandoned long ago. You don't force awakening. You radiate it. And without meaning to, you become a mirror, revealing to others the gap between who they are and who they long to be. Some will resist it. Some will misunderstand you. But others will begin to quietly heal simply because you refuse to play the old games. Your choices, the honest ones, the kind ones, the ones that cost you comfort, send subtle shockwaves through the collective psyche, as if your integrity tugs at threads woven through unseen networks, connecting every soul on earth. Friendships evolve. Families soften. Strangers feel safer around you without knowing why. You are not performing spirituality. You are embodying it. And embodiment is contagious. It travels through tone, through presence, through silence. The more you align with your true identity, the more the world around you begins to remember its own. You never asked to be an example. Yet here you are, a living reminder that awakening isn't loud, and power isn't dominance, and light doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It simply walks into a room and allows everything false to tremble, to question itself, to slowly fall away. And as your light stabilizes, you begin to sense something else, a subtle hum beneath the noise of everyday life, like a frequency only awakened hearts can hear. You are not the only one. Scattered across cities, mountains, villages, and silent bedrooms glowing in the dark, there are others like you. Souls who feel too deeply. Souls who wrestle with truth in the quiet. Souls who have endured storms without becoming the storm. They do not wear robes. They do not seek pedestals. They look like teachers and drivers, mothers and students, artists and workers, strangers brushing past you in a grocery aisle. On the surface, no one would suspect the magnitude of what lives inside them, but the unseen realm recognizes the pattern. A global network of chosen ones awakening, one moral decision at a time. You may never meet most of them, yet you are connected by an invisible thread, a shared vow made long before this lifetime to hold the frequency of integrity when the world begins to forget. Sometimes you recognize each other with nothing more than a glance, a feeling of relief that says, "You too?" Sometimes the recognition comes later, when the conversation deepens and the masks fall away. But whether near or distant, you are part of a living constellation of souls, slowly lighting up the planet from the inside out. Higher beings watch this network the way astronomers watch galaxies form, with awe, with reverence, with hope, because every awakened heart strengthens the others. Every act of compassion amplifies the signal. Every refusal to betray your spirit sends another wave through the grid. You do not stand alone, even on the loneliest nights. You are surrounded by a silent brotherhood and sisterhood of light, each carrying their own scars, each remembering in their own time, each answering the same ancient call in their own way.